Joining me today is the amazing Adina Kroll, who I am interviewing. And stick around if you want to find out more about getting the right strategies for your business, for growing your business, for getting your business to a 6 to 7 figure business. We're going to be having an awesome conversation here all about business. Adina, it's awesome to have you with us. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Whilst I just head over to Facebook and share this video all over the place, could you just give everybody a little bit of insight into who you are, what you do, and how you got into it? Big question, but in a nutshell.
I'll try my best. I'm not like brevity is not my strong suit, but just stop me when it gets to it.
Okay.
I'm Adina. I'm a business and human design coach, and I, as Cordelia's already so beautifully put, I help entrepreneurs scale from 6 to 7 business figures without doing a word. I can't word today. What's happening? And I'm basically doing this using a tool called human design, as well as NLP and sales psychology. And it all started because I didn't want to go to university. And so I fled the country to get my parents off my back.
Oh, wow. So where did you go? Let's just dive in there. Just pause right now. Let's dive in. Where did you go?
Basically, so I finished school at the age of 19 because I was quite old when I started school. 7, like in Germany, we start school at either 6 or 7, and I was 7.
Okay.
And I went to high school, and as the naivety of teenagers is very often the case, I always thought oh yeah, I just have to do good at school. I don't have to actually know what I'm going to be doing with my life. Because I had so many ideas of what I wanted to try. I wanted to do musical performance, I wanted to do art, I wanted to do traveling, I wanted to do all of the things, but never just one thing. Growing up with traditional German parents, they obviously said, scrap all of that. That can be a hobby. Go and study something that makes a lot of money.
Yeah.
You don't have to like it. And I'm like, that doesn't sit well with me. I don't really like the thought of that because I'm 19 now, and I have to do this for at least until the age of 65. That's a long time, mother. So anyway, I applied for university. I didn't get in. Shocker. I wasn't trying hard. But then obviously it was the discussion of okay, well, what do I do with my life? And to get my parents off my back, who said okay, well, then get an apprenticeship, do something in the meantime, do something productive with your life. I was like, hey, why don't I go to Costa Rica and learn Spanish? Because Germans love it when you study languages. We love it. And so I thought that's a great excuse. I can just bum around and just have some fun and pretend to, I wanted to learn Spanish, of course, but I'm like, hey, that sounds really, really cool. Except my mother didn't like the idea of her little girl going so far away to a different continent, so she didn't speak to me for 3 days.
Yeah, it's scary, right? So
it
then
is.
what happened?
Well, then eventually she stormed into my room and she was just like, well, it's going to be England, Ireland, or nothing. And I'm like, well, okay, one of my old schoolmates is in England, so I guess I'll take that. And then it was literally just put your finger in the air and see where the wind blows kind of situation. And a month later, I found an au pair position. So I went to Farnham for the very first time, if you know where that is.
Yeah.
And that's how I came to the UK. And I haven't left. I didn't know that I was going to stay here at that point, but I haven't left since 2008, since the 1st of November when I first stepped foot in the country.
I think as a place to get your first experience in the UK, Farnham's not bad. It's not a bad place to discover the UK via, for sure. It's really nice.
It's not, but then where I come from, it's the arse end of nowhere. Literally, the village that I grew up in has 200 people.
Okay.
The next town, way back when, maybe 50,000, 60,000 people. The only disco we had as kids is now an old people's home. That's how small it is where I come from. And so you think you know everything when you're at that age. And you're like, yeah, sure, I know how the world works. And bear in mind, I didn't like children that much. And I'm like, yeah, I'll just become an umbrella.
Yeah. I mean, that sounds perfectly logical.
Oh, it was just, I'm like, fuck, what do I do now? I mean, I have to say that
Yeah.
the kids that I worked with were great. They were 7 and 11, Lucy and Nikki, and they were absolutely fabulous. And yeah, like you said, like you could do worse than Farnham as a first experience of England. I was very, very lucky, but I was also super naive. And it's like when you don't speak the language and you're suddenly humbled into having to do everything yourself.
Yeah. Especially like first time away from parents as well. And you're looking after children now. Like that's wild. So, okay. So you came to the UK, you're an au pair, these 2 gorgeous children you looked after. Now you are a business coach for people wanting to get to 7 figures. What happened between then and now to give you that experience?
So I laugh because it's been a very long story. What has essentially happened is that when I try to keep it as brief as possible, I still tried to apply to university. My heart wasn't in it. My brother, like the way that it basically works is that for some reason, because my older brother had gotten a grant from the government, I couldn't get a grant from the government. So I would have had to pay out of pocket. Obviously, that wasn't really something that was working. So I quote unquote applied, but I really couldn't be bothered because ultimately there were no university degrees that interested me unless they were me becoming a surgeon. My grades were average. There was no way I would get into a university that let me become a doctor. And I'm pretty sure anyone right now is thankful for that fact. And so then I was just like, well, crap, what do I do now? So then I basically went, like my host mom, Steph, took me out into Guildford. She's just like, well, I'll print some CVs, and just handed them round. And Nando's was the only place that took me. And I'm like, okay, fine. I guess I work at Nando's now. So I was a waitress there, I think, for like a year and a half.
Sorry, that's Caroline summoning me on Zoom. We do that to each other. I might just drop her the link so if she wants to come join us. Anyway, so you worked in Nando's.
So I worked in Nando's for a year and a half, and then realized that, well, I enjoyed, like I did the hospitality work when I was a kid to afford my driving license. But anyway, so after a while, I was just like, I've kind of had enough of like 15-hour days. It's a long day of work. And so my brother, who joined me in the UK for a little while, his boss was just like, Adina, your English is pretty good. How about you come and how do you feel about calling into Germany for our company and just sell them stuff? And I'm like, yeah, sure. I'll take a salary and Monday to Friday working hours and never having to work on the weekend again. That sounds like I thought I made it. And then I entered the corporate IT world, and I thought I hit the jackpot at the age of 22, I think. I think 3 months in, I realized that was absolute soul-crushing torture. And suddenly my blissful reality of free weekends turned into absolute nightmare when I realized that I had no idea what the hell I was doing, that I was just told to dial for dollars. So eventually this then dragged on over several different corporations and many, many places. And I only ever got to have sales jobs because I wasn't trained formally in anything. So sales, like to get a sales job is like the easiest thing ever. And so then I was at many, many different sales companies, hating my entire existence. And someone handed me a Tim Ferriss book called The 4-Hour Workweek. And I'm like, yeah, fine, I'll read it. So I read it, and the dude was also in a call center. And I'm like, and for you know that moment when you first read one of these books and it's life-changing? And I'm like, he's in a call center like me. He hated sales like me. You know, and you suddenly for once, like just black ink, and you're like, you feel understood until you realize that actually everyone is sort of in a very similar scenario. Well, anyway, so then I realized, oh, I've never even considered building my own business, which is what the whole book is all about. And so then I tried building my own businesses, and Cordelia, I've tried everything at that point. I've made my own cosmetics. I've studied video game design for a little while. I've tried to be a copywriter, a translator, a virtual assistant. I tried to make lunches for my fucking co-workers. You name it, I have probably tried it, and it didn't wing off. And eventually I was just like, why is everyone else happy with their lousy existence and not me? Why is everyone else happy in the same job and not me? Am I just the ungrateful one? So anyway, so then I found a video from Marie Forleo talking about coaching. And I'm like, what the hell is coaching? And then I kept hearing her talking. I'm like, I've been doing this forever. And so that's how I got into coaching. And then it turns out that I'm really, really good at sales, which is how business coaching comes in, because my bosses didn't like, so we had call sheets. we had to do 40 calls a day and 2 hours of call time. I basically like had 3 or 4 calls a day and an hour call time because I decided to be efficient in my job. But they didn't like that because obviously the KPIs, the key performance indicators, didn't match, but I always overperformed except 2 quarters where I didn't, and that wasn't my fault. And anyway, so my reward for hard work or for efficient work was more work, and that didn't sit well with me.
Yeah, it's punishing, right? That's such a shit system, isn't it? It's like, doesn't make sense. It's all about, it doesn't really get people motivated to do better at their job. Like, why would you be motivated in that instance? It's like, well, I'll become more efficient and I'll work, but it just means I've got to do more than everyone else is doing. Well, fuck it, I'll just do it slower then. Why not?
I spent 4 hours of my workday on Facebook writing blogs for my business. I probably shouldn't be saying that, but it was this or dialing. Like, I've already achieved at that point.
Yeah.
I was like, why should I? If my reward is more work or a bloody pizza, I'm not gonna want to.
So you discovered coaching, but the thing that you're really passionate about is human design, right? That's the thing that was, did you discover that? And it was like, oh, did you have like a moment like realizing that that's the reason why I am like I am?
I was in a really expensive mastermind that when in the beginning of my business, I was just like, yeah, this woman can help me sell high ticket. And it was great. And I was like 3 or 4 months in, close to the end of the program. And I'm like, listen, I'm doing everything that you're saying that you're doing. I was the perfect student. And I'm like, and it's just gross. I can't do it. It doesn't work. And yeah, and she couldn't argue. She's like, yeah, I can see that you're doing everything. She's like, what's your human design type? And I'm like, the what? And she's like, go do the test, go do the thing, and then tell me what you are. And I'm like, well, I'm a projector. And she's like, well, yeah, then of course isn't going to work for you. And I'm like, and you tell me now? So then basically I read everything there was to read about human design, and I felt seen. I was just like, oh, that makes sense. This is why it feels gross. And then I just decided I'm just studying it. And then I realized that actually, hang on a minute, why isn't everyone using a system that shows them, how do you make decisions that are correct for you? Because we're just being taught to trust what everyone else is saying. And why isn't that something that we're being taught? And then I looked at it and I'm like, well, everyone's selling 3-step formulas and systems and all of these things. And I'm like, well, there are going to be other people out there who are doing all of the steps, but who are also not seeing the results. And that's not because the system is broken or the person is wrong for doing it. I'm like, the system works for the people who it works for. So then let's find out who it works for. And then let's create systems that actually work for everyone based on what their particular design is. And that's how I started implementing human design.
Okay, so you're a projector and that system wasn't working for you. So what does that mean? Like, why wasn't it working for you?
So when we look at, you said you had someone on who talked about human design before, so I'm not going to go too much into the basics, but let's just very brief overview. We understand and we can all agree that biologically we're all differently, right? We all have a very different DNA, even if like most of us have 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 eyes and a nose, right? Most of us, but still biological difference. Even if we're having biological identical twins, there's still a slight difference. Well, the same thing is true for our energetics, right? And I'm not just talking about energetics in terms of spiritual energetics, but in terms of how we best flow through the world, how we make decisions, how we talk, how other people perceive it, how our energy levels are like. And so when for instance, the system that I was taught in that particular mastermind was very much like post 3 times a day, go and engage with pretty much everyone that was in there. The thing is, it's not a secret. Like, you can Google all of these things, right? It's always the support we go there for. Like, go and write something provocative. And that was like the gist, like highly, highly dumbed down just now for this conversation. And that just didn't work because I was putting in a lot of effort. Because when I was reading about projectors, it wasn't about forcing visibility. Projectors need to see themselves first, and I was trying to be seen. I was trying to get attention. I was trying to, everyone look at me, I have something valuable to say. And that doesn't work for most people. not in that same way, but projectors almost never see any success with this. And so when we started looking at it, okay, well, what does a projector actually need to then see success? Well, they have to share from a place of seeing themselves first, recognizing their value first, more so than any other type before then. And again, every type has to do that in some way, shape, or form, but some can get away with it more than others.
Okay, so can you give me like a tangible example of like a post that if you'd have put it out before this, it wouldn't have made sense, but after having that understanding about yourself and now allowing yourself to see yourself first, like where that made a difference?
It's not so much a post difference, it's more just the intention behind it.
Mm-hmm.
Have you ever, like, the best way that I can describe it is with maybe how you've received messages in the past. Have you ever received a message in the past from someone and it wasn't the greatest message? They were just like, hey, Cordelia, maybe they're trying to pitch something to you, right? You probably get that all the time. And then you get another message, but one of these messages, they're both similar. None of them's rude. Maybe a lot of exclamation marks, who knows, right? But one you're a little bit more receptive to than the other. And one of them you're just like, ugh, like, God, no. Then what's wrong with that one that is similar to, like, what makes you look at one more than the other?
Well, it's the level of authenticity that is sensed. Okay. Mm-hmm. So it's about authenticity and being able, so you're not forcing something, it's coming from a place of it authentically feeling right.
It authentically feeling right. Also detachment, right? If you sell to get something, it's not going to work. But if you sell because you just want to actually be supportive, people are going to be more receptive to it, right? We've all received pitches that were really horrible. Yeah. And that's because they're just like, take my stuff, go and buy the thing. And I'm like, you haven't even, I always compare sales to sex. Ultimately. And it's like going on a first date and immediately saying, okay, well, come and let me do this for a moment. It's like, it's just like, no, don't touch me. Right? That's essentially that's the comparison.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
Okay. Cool. Yeah. I mean, I get that comparison. I normally hear it being compared to dating. And I've definitely stood up on stage and compared the game of online business to a game of online Tinder before, yep. But that takes it to a new level for sure. I love it though, because it'll make people remember it. So, okay, so helping people. So let's take and I have a basic understanding of human design, but I'm asking you these questions for our audience that some of them won't and some of them don't. Okay, so it's a little introduction to them. But let's say you are running a business, you're really passionate about what it is that you do. How is it that human design or understanding your profile, understanding those energetics better, what it is that you need, like how much of a difference does that make to how you run a business?
Maybe a brief overview of just like a very quick understanding of the types. So at the moment we have 5 types in human design. We've got the generators, manifesting generators, the manifestors, projectors, and the reflectors, right? And that's like, if you take nationalities as an example, we've got the Germans, the French, the English, right? Like whatever other 2 nationalities you want to throw in there. That's basically like that. And if you take the type alone, then we look at, okay, well, how do they operate? A generator is literally designed, like they are designed to generate their own energy. They are designed to have a very inviting aura. A generator, when they're excited and lit up by what it is that they're doing, like everyone wants to get up all in their business and know what the hell they're up to, right? Mm-hmm. So taking that for an example, a projector like myself, for instance, we are taking one person at a time and we see them really, really deeply. Thing with projectors is they're always the ones to give unsolicited advice. They're always the ones who are just like, right, I think you should be doing this. And I think you should be doing this. And we all know unsolicited advice fucking stinks. Like it's not nice, right? Mm. And so just taking those 2 examples, right? And understanding, okay, well, if we have a generator who's really frustrated with their work, and by the way, generators burn out a lot because they respond to that frustration of not getting where they want to go with more work, so they just burn themselves out, then we need to understand, okay, well, how can we get back into that satisfaction and that enjoyment? Because they're here for mastery. They're here to be the masters of their chosen field and to show the rest of us what does that enjoyment of that mastery look like, and then pouring your energy into that. Well, when you start knowing that, for instance, my generator clients, we bring that enjoyment in, we bring that desire in. And all of a sudden, when they start reaching out, or when they start going on podcasts, or when they start writing guest posts or blogs or doing workshops, people naturally gravitate towards them. And then they can have those conversations, and then they can network. And then the act of selling and the act of making money is so much easier, right? When you then take a projector or a manifestor is here to start things, but not always finish things, for instance. When we know that someone's a manifestor, there is absolutely no point in getting them to just finish what they started. That's not what they're here for, right?
Yeah.
And every type has their own theme. And so when we have a manifestor client, for instance, or even a manifesting generator, because they're a hybrid between the two, when we understand, okay, well, they're not here to finish what they started. They're not necessarily here to always go and build one business. They're here to do lots of different things. Well, imagine what that could mean for them when they create a business. And so I have manifestor clients who then have loads of different avenues, especially also manifesting generators. They're here to skip steps and not go down in the details. And so that's how business then gets effective and all affected. And then all of a sudden we have people who suddenly start being lit up by what it is that they started creating and started doing. And well, I don't need to tell you what the effects of that are.
Imagine if schools started implementing this.
I wish I could start a petition.
I mean, it would just be incredible, wouldn't it? Like, there's just one particular example of how, one of the biggest examples of how people are forced into sort of like cookie cutouts that don't fit, for sure. What do you think I am, by the way? Do you know enough about me to guess what you reckon I might be?
I guess you're a generator, but I don't.
Yeah, I think manifesting generator.
Manifesting generator. Yeah, I don't know enough about you.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, I reckon the generator type.
Nice. I'm not sure what Caroline is. I'm very open-minded with all this stuff. I haven't done enough research or looked into it enough to really feel like I can fully, but I find it fascinating, like so fascinating. And I totally resonate with how, we've all got different DNA, we're all different, and therefore there's a different makeup. I think some things I get a bit lost along the way. I'm like, oh, this is getting complicated. Or I'm like, getting into the finer details of it. I get kind of a bit lost in that. But in terms of the general concept, I find it really, really fascinating. So you've got something where people can go and find out a bit more about human design in relation to business. Is that right? Can you talk me through that?
Yeah. It's a little PDF that I essentially created where I wanted to help people in business essentially look at, okay, well, what are the things that they per type struggle with the most? Right? So when we have generators, they burn themselves out really quick. Manifestors getting really angry because they feel like everyone's holding them back and like they're being put on a leash, and reflectors just being disappointed with the whole world in general because they just feel unhealthy everywhere. Obviously, I'm like hyperbole here, right? But putting it in there's like a little document that I'm like, okay, well, what are some of the things that you can create pretty much or change immediately, that you can look immediately, that I know will make a big difference, that you can start. So manifesting generators, you guys always have you won't necessarily know immediately what I mean by this, but if you ever look at your chart, if you have like gate 34 defined, like you just so fast and your calendar is always super full. Like manifesting generators, you guys just like, you don't take breaks.
Yeah, it's true. It's actually
one thing after another. And so we then look at that particular thing.
I think for me, like the most interesting part about it is we've got around 60 clients, maybe 70. The number's always going up, but we've got between 60 and 70 clients at the moment. And obviously we teach strategies, we teach marketing, and it's one of those things where it's, I'm sat here thinking, am I mindful enough? Because I know that the most powerful thing you can do is get out on video, right? Get out on video, like run live events, run webinars, get to live events, network, like getting in front of people and connecting with people is super powerful. And you said something at the beginning there, which was about how you like there were certain things that didn't fit for your human design type, right? You were being told to like post, do, and the thing that got you stuck was the fact that you were a projector and you needed to see yourself first before you could do that. My question is that something that holds you back in that way? Or from holding you back is probably not the right way to put it. Is that something that prevents you from being able to take on those strategies or go for it in that way? Is it before you fully understood what your message is and what it is that you're trying to achieve? Or is it for every individual strategy, webinar, live training, all of it?
That answer is probably going to take a very, very long time, but I'll try to be brief.
Okay, go for it.
The idea behind it is that human design isn't limiting by any means, right? So that strategy could technically work. The problem is for a lot of projectors, and again, it depends on every projector in general, the way that the aura mechanics work, and this is how, like, we're getting a little bit deeper into human design. Every type has an aura. You generators, you have what we call an inviting aura. This is why when you're working in your design, everyone feels invited to come into your presence, and everyone wants just to be like, Kadila, like, especially if you're, do you know what your profile is? By any chance?
Manifesting generator, but I have to look up. I've got a chart somewhere. I don't know where it would be.
Like, depending on what your profile is, that's also even more like, it's the numbers. It'll say in the keynotes if you happen to find it. Well, anyway, so every design has a different aura type, and the way that do you know?
I've got it. It's opening.
Okay.
Anyway, I carry on. I'll keep looking for it.
Mm-hmm.
That one didn't open, but
if not, you can just quickly draw a chart, take seconds if you want to know. So the way that basically projector auras work is we call it a penetrating aura. The penetrating aura, the way that I always describe it is we're kind of doing energetic surgery with people. The projectors know things. They just know intrinsically what it is that other people need to do to be more efficient. Like, that is beyond a doubt the thing. But the problem is, if you don't consent to having yourself split open by a surgical knife, you're not going to want it, right? This is why I use it on purpose. If you don't consent to do that, then you're going to want to get that person away from you as fast as possible, right? So this is why our strategy as projectors is always to get recognized and invited first. You're not going to let a surgeon who you don't trust enter into your field. And again, it's like the weird analogy, but it's one that I think works the best with a projector type. And so when a projector tries to market themselves, and when I tried to market myself, it was with the idea of, let me prove myself. Let me prove that I am worthy. Let me prove that I am worth listening to. Let me prove, right? Which is what I've been taught, especially like from sales trainings way back in the past. It's just like, no means yes. And I'm like, don't we see how that's problematic? First of all. But that was the sales training back in the days that we were given in corporate. Well, anyway, when I then started looking at, okay, well, how does my type work best? Whenever and I haven't got specific examples because it was always in the moment. It was an in the moment thing. Whenever I crafted posts, for instance, and this is posts in general, whenever I craft a post and I spend hours on them, fine-tuning them, finding the right words, they would fall flat. But when I was doing something in 10 seconds, because in the moment it was right, and I'm like, I know this needs to be heard. I know that people need to hear this. I know it's valuable, and I don't care if they like it or not. That's when I got clients. That's when people started seeing me. And I'm like, well, that's what human design teaches. And I have a copywriter telling me exactly what to write. That flops. But the moment I just show up and I just like do a reel and it's quickly something and I don't have no makeup on or whatever, and I just say the thing that needs to be said and I swear and whatever, like what needs to come out, that's when people comment. That's when people start saying, like, this really resonated. I really needed to hear this. Like, tell me that's a coincidence.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? And actually, I really resonate with that. I think it just comes down to what you said earlier, which is it's the authenticity piece. You've got to find the way of working that enables you to be your most authentic is my biggest takeaway from this conversation.
And it's really hard.
Yeah. And human design can help you find that, right?
Yeah.
By the way, everyone watching this, there is a QR code I've just put there where you can, if you're watching this on your phone, QR codes are a bit useless, but what you can do is screenshot this frame and it will essentially take you, you can then click on that QR code, not take to a link. I've also put a link in the description. Adina has shared a PDF that is going to enable you to look more into human design and how you knowing and understanding your human design can impact your business and enable you to unlock massive next levels in your business achievements or what it is that you're trying to do. We've just been looking at human design and talking about it, and you asked me to find the numbers. My number. Well, I've got
where it says profile. What does it say?
What do you mean?
You usually have keynotes depending on what thing it says. So where it usually says type, generator, profile, this incarnation.
Profile is 6/2.
6/2. Okay, so this is always really cool. So when you're a second line, we call it the hermit line. You know, when I said when you're a generator and you're really excited in what you're into, everyone just wants to get in what you're doing. When you're a second line profile, so this is actually quite cool. We call you the gifted children. You just know stuff. Like whenever you have to try and learn something really hard, that's not for you. But when you're just in your own and you just like being by yourself and you just want to be alone, that's when you get the phone calls from people. That's when everyone's like, Cordelia, do you want to come out? Cordelia, do you want to go and do this thing? And you're just like, God, just leave me alone for a moment. I'm just doing my thing. I'm just like reading a book, learning to sew.
Design of 3, like alone time is not a normal thing, I have to say. But yeah, okay, cool. So, but why is it called the exemplary human?
It's called the exemplary human. So we've got 6 profiles in human design. Not 6 profiles. We've got 6 profile lines, 1 through to 6. Super easy to remember. Mm-hmm. And the exemplary human is essentially, we call it the gifted child or the hermit. They're naturally talented. They have what we would call a projection field.
Okay.
And the projection field is going outward because ultimately you are here to be called out when you have had enough time to hermit and marinate in your gifts so that you're ready to share them. So a second line that is constantly outside is not going to get as many opportunities as a second line who regularly has alone time. And you guys crave alone time. And very often as 6 lines, like if you're a 6 line as well, and you are between your 30s and 50s, you guys just want to be left alone. Like you're good. Doesn't mean you always get to be alone, but in an ideal world, you'll have the cabin in the woods if it is a 6/2 profile for you, right? But it's in that alone time where you can hone your talents and you get to decide what gets enough energy for you so that other people are here to call you out. So a lot of the time when I'm coaching second line profiles, like alone time is a must. And that is literally when they get the emails. That is when they get the phone calls. That is when they get the responses. It's really cool to witness.
Okay. It is fascinating. It's so fascinating. I wish that we could, I need to let you go because I know you've got other things, but I now want to just ask you 100 more questions.
Go ahead.
Yeah, where can we follow you and find out more about human design in relation to business?
Follow me. I'm very active on Instagram. That's always where Instagram is my main domain at adinakroll.com. You can also find me on my web address. But yeah, if you want like just chat to me on DMs. I'm very approachable.
So I will get your Instagram link. I think you already shared it with me actually as well. So I think, but let me I'll just get that quickly before we go, and I will drop that into the chat for anybody watching this interview. Have you got anything else you want to share? Anything I should have asked you that I haven't asked you that would have been a really good thing for our audience to hear about?
Oh, it's like the question of what do you want to eat tonight? I'm like, I'm sure I have an idea, but I can't think of anything. everything right now.
That's fine. There is no it doesn't matter if you don't know the answer to that question. I just wanted to check there wasn't something inside you that was burning. Chippo says, I'm a manifesting generator and rely on systems and delegation. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Also, like being someone that needs delegation, but also is a bit of a people pleaser, or like is scared of conflict. Man, that's been a hard lesson to learn. How do you delegate to your team when you don't want to piss them off? Like I literally had to learn that lesson.
Oh.
And it was like they were like, but I want you to give me things to do because I don't have enough to do. It's like, okay. It's really funny. But yeah.
Oh man, it's great though, right? But because you're here to get shortcuts, it's also like, but I don't want you to do all the things. It's just like, just do the step that gets you faster to the next thing.
Yeah.
But people want details.
Yeah, and they want the details. It's true. It is true. Well, it's been an absolute pleasure to meet you, Adina, and to spend some time with you. Guys, we're on this interview because Adina was on the networking event, and off the back of that, we had promised her that we would do a live interview. And if you want to check out more about human design and how Adina helps people get to 7 figures through understanding and utilizing human design, then I have dropped a link to her PDF in the description. There's also the QR code there, and go and check her out on Instagram at Adina Kroll. But that is all from us. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And Adina, it was a pleasure to spend some time with you. And thank you for your